Clemons is, we noticed as soon as he walked in the door that he's physically, he's put together well. He's a big dude. He's got muscle. He's got speed. He's got strong hands. And I think we were able to just show that a little bit today. And I can't wait to see where his talents can go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. Snow covers the ground out here on this Monday, April the 4th. Big chunks of snow falling earlier today. So what? It's Michigan. We've seen that before. Luckily, that didn't happen out there on Saturday in the spring game. This is the Maize and Blue Reviews afternoon live. We're here weekdays at 1 o'clock. Every day, we're a part of Rivals.com. We talk about the latest in Michigan sports, and there's a lot to talk about after the spring game 22 was played to big success, I think, entertainment-wise, success for the football team. We'll see, but it was fun. The people that made their way down there, listened on the radio, watched on TV. It's Michigan football. It's pretty popular, and it went off, and we're here to talk about it, give you our thoughts, our takeaways on what we saw out there at the big house. Your comments are always welcome. You can jump in, leave a comment as they come through. We'll go ahead and comment on what you have to say if you have any thoughts on the Maize and Blue spring game, which had the Blue winning the game. It was fun to get down there to the stadium. I was, projecting. If you were listening on Friday, I was mapping out my game plans that I planned on arriving at 11:10, and I could have got there at 11:10, but I kind of just moseyed on in and 11:20, so it wasn't all that bad. The team was already out there, and took my spot was at section 21. Seat 60 or row 65. So I didn't go that far. Thought, wow, this is a pretty nice seat way up here. Right at about the 40-yard line or whatever. And that's where I thought I was going to stay. But then, before they got to that spring game, I started going through the individual drills, and I took a picture that I sent to the Wolverine Den of the stadium where you said both of the teams out there just warming up and everything. But then they had the defensive ends down in the right corner of the stadium, and getting a good picture down there. And I just walk right up to the front row. I walked up to the third row down there in the corner. I was able to take a picture of Derek Moore, the true freshman defensive end. Able to post that one on there. So that was a good time. And then I just backed it up a little bit and stood for the first quarter and second quarter, standing up there on the fifth row at the 5-yard line, and then in the second half, walked up by the exit. I don't know what row that is, but took it in from there. If you always sit in the same spot, then you get that vantage point. Like if you watch TV, it's one of those things, like if you always watch sports on TV, basketball for sure, you always have the vantage point of being, right at center court. Then, you're just so used to it. Same thing with football, they're right there at the 50, and you're used to it. You get in these different spots. That's why if you ever sit in the end zone, it's a completely different experience of watching a game, especially if you're not used to going out there. So, a couple different vantage points and, taking it in there. I overdressed, I was somebody that's used to sitting up in the press box. And so I don't have to deal with the elements. So when I saw the, possible 10-mile-an-hour winds and 40 degrees down there to 30, and it's not bad walking around when it's 30 degrees, but if you have to sit somewhere for 2, maybe 3 hours, 30 degrees starts feeling like 10, 20 degrees. So I dressed like an Eskimo and brought a seat cushion and a blanket and, these big gloves and a hat. And I didn't need the gloves. I didn't need the blanket. The seat cushion, that was nice. That is, I know you have to if you're a season ticket holder. I think you have to be a season ticket holder. You get that cushion. Maybe you can bring it just a cushion in the regular season. I'm not sure. You get that seat back would be nice too. The one time I tried to lean back to see if I could just like kick. You can't really do it. But I didn't have a seat back. I don't think you could have brought one of those in. But it was. It's always good, to go in overdress, and I didn't wear my hat. I didn't need the gloves. I didn't need the blanket. So it ended up being all right. So I'm going to give you some takeaways. I know, a lot of people comes down to a spring game and they're like, so what did you learn? Did you learn anything that you didn't know before? Well, I learned how just the team look overall in a practice setting. And I learned that, Davis Warren, even though we had heard Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, had been posting that different tidbits really all spring long about the team. And in a couple different times, he was talking about the quarterback room. And he said, the kid Davis Warren, they really got a hose. You can really throw it. He said that more than once. It's like, what are we talking about here? The fourth string quarterback, fifth string quarterback? You keep talking about that he's got this arm. Well, he was one of the stories of the spring game. He did have a really nice arm. You can see it. I think going back, I was at the game. I listened to the radio broadcast through MGO Blue. And then yesterday, I finally watched the coverage to the Big Ten Network with Jake Butt. And I think it was the play-by-play guy that was in there that was, talking about some different things with he talked about Davis Warren and said that he had a power 5 arm. Wow, he's got a power 5 arm. I wasn't arguing with that. Maybe it was Butt that said that. Either way, he does. That was one of the takeaways. And then that they had enough quarterbacks. Cade McNamara, I'll talk about him coming up. His performance, the 4 series that he played, his throws, his spring, what it looks like ahead for the summer phase and fall camp, and then into 22 and everything. But when you don't have your starting quarterback, you don't have the backup quarterback in JJ McCarthy. He was just relegated to being a holder on field goals. And, so he got out there a little bit. He was mostly cheerleading. So you're down to, then you're talking about third string, fourth string. You get down to third and fourth string, you're trying to put together a scrimmage and really try to get a feel for what's going on out there. You can really see a significant drop off. And, Michigan had enough QBs out there where, they were able to put together a pretty good semblance of a scrimmage, spring game. And so from that part, I liked, that. Keith jumping in right away, asking me, "What's up? How you been?" Keith, I've been good. I'm back from like I just came back from Michigan Stadium in the spring game. That's what's on my mind today. That's what I'm talking about here, and just giving you my takeaways initially here. People will ask you, "What'd you think?" I thought, so these are the Big Ten champs, and now they got to defend the Big Ten. They hadn't won it in 16 years. So it was an unusual situation for being down there like, hey, these are the champs. And now, they're going through spring practice. A lot of times before previous 15, 16 years, you'd say, all right, spring ball, who looked good? And it would almost follow, even from Michigan fans, like, who cares? They're not going to beat Ohio State. They're not, they're not going to Indianapolis. What's it matter? Harbaugh can't pick a quarterback to save his life. And, there were some points to that, not to obsess about it. But, those were a lot of the things definitely over the previous 7 years with Harbaugh. Well, maybe not the first 1 or 2. She gave a little bit of a break there, but the last couple for sure. In the last year, 2 years ago, that's kind of leading the, I don't know about leading the charge, but I'm saying, what the heck, let's just wait till the season. And it's one good thing. There's a lot of good things about winning the Big Ten, going back and thinking about it, but previous, the first 40 years or so of me watching Michigan football, all the way up to I'd say the 2007 season. No, Michigan didn't win the Big Ten every year. Though they won the one national championship in '97, but it always felt like growing up, and then in the off seasons and everything, that Michigan had a chance. They were in with a chance to win the Big Ten. They were in with a chance if everything, fell into place to win a national championship or play for it. And so the off season was always like, oh man, this guy could do that and all the possibilities. But, once you go 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 16 years, and it's been so long, like, what did they beat Ohio State once or twice during that time period? It gets to where even the enthusiasm for the off season, and God loves some of the younger people that hadn't experienced it. They were still there on Twitter, like, this is going to be the year. Like, okay, good for you that you were able to do that. But it was there were a lot of off seasons that it was kind of like your head was down. Even in the last year, like, oh yeah, hopefully you'll be there for the season. Of course, it's going to be your team. You're going to watch, but it just wasn't. It just didn't hit the same. Is that the way to say it? Just hits different. The experience is different in the off season when you are the champ. And, that part was different too. That's one of my takeaways. But I look at the line play overall. The offensive line is the strength of this team. And, you start looking at the depth in there. Those guys look pretty good. And, the defensive line, they had to replace two guys that, would be first round picks, number 1 overall pick, presumptive number 1 overall pick, and Aiden Hutchinson, and then Ajabo, wherever he falls into the mix. He would have been looked like a surefire first round pick before the Achilles injury. But, so they got 25 sacks that got to replace. But they got a lot of candidates out there, a lot of really good linemen and linebackers. Now, are they stars? Are they superstars? Am I ready to push the button and say that? Like, I don't know, Junior Colson, is he a star? Is he a superstar? He's a star. Nakai Hill-Green, can he be a star? Your guys taking the next step. And in that argument, I say, well, where was Ajabo? Ajabo was, nobody really knew who he was. Came out of nowhere on the other side of Hutchinson. So that happens. And there's a lot of candidates, never guys just to come out of nowhere, but for guys to, as a group, that they can be a pretty good defense, a championship type defense. And I think Mozzie Smith and Chris Jenkins inside. You start there. I mentioned those two linebackers. You got a host of different guys from Mike Morris to Taylor Upshaw, as defensive ends to outside linebackers, and a bunch of guys that are pushing them. That we could talk about a half dozen of them, guys that could jump up there and be playmakers, maybe difference makers. One of them is actually named TJ Guy, who had a pretty good spring game. So let's get into it a little bit. We'll throw some names up that I wanted to comment on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube or through Twitter or whatever else. Before we go any further, though, and talk about the players there that jumped out to me. Valiant Management, VMG. I want to thank them for our top 2 prizes in the TMBR survivor pool that we had. Basketball wise, it's over. We have the winners. We're set to mail the grand prize and the second prize out. But I wanted to thank Jared Wangler for hooking us up with the Michigan versus everybody gear for the winners. And there it is. Pretty nice. Saw some of that down at the stadium on Saturday. The winner of our survivor pool, Hale_Blue and Blue Orion, the winners, guys from the Wolverine Den. You join up the Wolverine Den, you win some prizes. You can win some prizes if you get involved in the different contests that we have and everything else. All right, let's get to the some of these guys here that stood out. Number one, everyone is in agreement that Darrius Clemons stole the show. The true freshman wide receiver, one of 13 in for Michigan, was if he wasn't the story of the game, if you're looking for one player to say who was the story, I would put Clemons out there. We mentioned Davis Warren. You can make a case for him, but in the end, who knows who's going to end up participating or contributing once fall comes around. But Clemons is everything that you could possibly hope to be. And it was one of those things where he didn't just grab this one touchdown pass, and it was a great catch and really nice throw and a better catch and everything else. But it wasn't like that was it. Like he was a one catch and, he's going to be great. They kept looking for him, and he caught a couple other balls, and there was a bunch of targets out there for him. And, how he fits in it probably the deepest unit on the team remains to be seen, but it's a good problem to have. I thought the first time that I laid eyes on him, watched him, he was working out down, just going out for a few passes. Down there he is, 0 on his jersey, and I was feeling a little bit, it looked like Braylon Edwards when Braylon Edwards was a freshman. And I heard on the broadcast that Jake Budd had called him Nico Collins, big wide receiver, physical, and not bad comparisons. I think you take that if you're Clemons, if you're a Michigan fan. Nico Collins and Braylon Edwards, excellent wide receivers at Michigan. So the sky's the limit there for Clemons. He stole the show. That was awesome. Mazi Smith, right there in the middle of your defense. If you want to talk, what's the key being, right there, defensive tackle, a guy that was good last year. Can he go from good to great or very good? Listening to John Jansen, the color analyst, doing the first job of the radio broadcast, him and Doug Karsh. Good job. I give those guys an A. They were good, technically sound, had good banter, good information. It was like they had been doing that their whole life. Great job by those guys. But Jansen had mentioned Mazi Smith walking around the football building and just, did he say it was a transformation? He could just tell that, when you put in not just a month, you put in, the work on your body to, he could tell. I forgot exactly how he put it, but you could see it. Ripped muscles, walking around, a bigger version of Aaron Donald. He didn't say any of that, but I was listening, and as Jansen said that, I looked down there at Mazi Smith, and I said, you know what, 58? I know what he's talking about. He does look bigger, stronger, leaner, all of those things. And, that's going to be the guy that this team is going to lean on. And could he be a monster there in the middle for the Wolverines? He could. And so there was an observation as well. Go down the list here. If you had been following things, you've been watching this show, certainly if you've been a member of the Maize and Blue Review and the Wolverine Den, you found out that Mike Sandra still was working with the defensive backs, wide receiver for the first couple of years. And then a little bit of a surprise, Khalil Mullings, who was an excellent running back in high school back in Massachusetts, played linebacker. He got on the field last year in the mix there with Michigan linebacker. You had heard that he was working out at running back. And then you watch in the spring game and you see Mullings out there at linebacker, and you're like, well, I guess that experiment's over as they want him more on the defensive side. Not so fast. He ended up, playing linebacker 2 ways in this game. Sanders still played 2 ways in this game as well. And you saw Mullings rip off a nice gain, went around, showed some speed. And now he did also he caught a pass and then fumbled. They ended up reviewing it and saying that his calf was down, as his knee was down. So I don't know how the coaches look at that. You get a break. Hey, his knee was down, so it's not a fumble. It's one of those things where you're playing both ways. You immediately think, okay, if you're going to be a running back, you're going to catch the ball in the backfield. Maybe you should just stay committed to working as a running back, because it could be a distraction both ways. Certainly if you're fumbling the ball, that's something that at least comes to mind. So we'll see if he has to pick or if Michigan picks a side, and maybe they won't make that decision until fall ball. Obviously they don't have to make that decision. They could say, we're just going to let it play out. See what happens. If we want to put them over on offense, we can. maybe he'll have a defense. Henning's the other one. A.J. Henning, when you think about Michigan in the running back position here, they mentioned it on the broadcast. When you see him on end arounds and sweeps, and you saw him during the Western game last year have a 74-yard touchdown on an end around, punt returner, kick returner. I mean, he's excellent with the ball in his hands. The first two passes they threw to him, one you can make the case a little bit too high, but I thought he should have had it. If I was officially scoring, I'd have put it down as a drop. The second pass that went to Henning, certainly he did drop it, but then he ended up making a pretty nice catch. But when you hear the name Deebo Samuel, and who is the closest to being a Deebo Samuel type for Michigan? Well, Henning's a wide receiver, but he's an excellent runner. So lining him up in the backfield, and you're not going to put wrinkles and, show specials and all these things that you want to throw at opponents come fall. But yeah, it's not going to be a huge shock if you see a few Henning packages out of the backfield. Now, if you've watched enough NFL and Deebo Samuel, they do give it to Samuel out of the backfield, but you go back and you watch some of those Niner games, you see that defenses, it confuses them. It confuses them, and they can use Deebo Samuel as a decoy. Maybe it'll just be for that, but, Henning, when you talk about the running back depth for this team, which we'll be talking about in the days and weeks ahead, Henning is one as a special. Khalil Mullings, A.J. Henning, they've got, wild cards. I think that's a good way to put it here today, the Monday after the spring game. Yeah, after Blake Corum, after Donovan Edwards, after Tavier Dunlap. Don't forget they've got C.J. Stokes, who's a true freshman coming in. So there's 4 scholarship backs. Khalil Mullings, maybe bigger guy, maybe short yardage specialist. A.J. Henning, a Deebo Samuel type. So some wild cards mixed in there as well. It's like Sanders still. Is he going to play wide receiver? Is he going to play defensive back? Is a nickel? He looked pretty good in high school from all accounts as a defensive back. He looked pretty good covering, Andrell Anthony on that Cade McNamara, his second downfield pass that he put right on Andrell Anthony, but Sanders still was there. So maybe they will put him in a pinch at defensive back, but they'll have to figure that out because Sandstrol's also wearing the number 0, and Clemons is the number 0. You can't have 2 number 0s out there on offense, so they'll have to make that decision, at least number-wise, when it comes down the Sanders still. And so maybe he will be a defensive player. That'll be something to keep an eye on in fall ball, number-wise. All right, some of the other things. Mentioned TJ Guy. Mason Graham as a true freshman. There's a freshman that came in here. Clemons stole the show. Physically, being able to run the routes, putting his foot in the ground. I mean, he looked like a senior. Certainly looked like somebody that could contribute to Michigan right away. I would also say the same thing about a number. I'm just looking here at the different guys that ended up playing. We'll get to the quarterbacks, and I mentioned at the outset how Derek Moore passed the look test, number 8 as a defensive end. It wouldn't be a surprise to see him in some kind of rotation as a pass rushing specialist. But Mason Graham, a true freshman defensive tackle, that's almost unheard of. And yet you see him out there physically. He looks like he's up to the task. And if we're making predictions today, I would predict that Mason Graham would be in the 2 deep and would get snaps in the opener against Colorado State as a true freshman in the middle of Michigan's defense. So Mason Graham, you'd already heard a lot of good things about him. And then just seeing him, you got to hold up physically. I know technique and all those things. I'm saying that, he looks like he's stout enough to play as a true freshman, which is amazing. Some of the other guys here, a true freshman down at 0.5 on the screen here, item 5, Miles Pollard, a defensive back, and Will Johnson, who was wearing number 2 out there, the 5-star. Both of those guys. There was a pass. I think Michigan went for it on a 4th down, and Davis Warren threw it to Cornelius Johnson, a little timing route or back shoulder throw right at the goal line. And both Pollard and Johnson were there, and they combined to make the play. But those guys look like, nose for the ball, good technique, playing the ball in the air, all those kind of things. One play, but physically and then technically, and a 4th down play to a very good wide receiver. The ball was right on him, and those guys making the combination. Both of them looked like they were in position. Could both of those guys figure in the Michigan secondary? Johnson, I think everybody would say that. And, maybe Miles Pollard as well. That's another thing that I would say, just taking a look at it. Now, a couple other things here. Cade McNamara, some folks complaining, McNamara, whatever this. Did he look great, in the spring game? No, he didn't. He threw a dud to Cornelius Johnson in the first series. And, so he totally missed that pass. You want to criticize him. You want to say, there it is. McNamara, he's not going to be able to get it. Okay, it was one throw. Second series, he put a good ball on Andrell Anthony. And there was just a couple limited throws there. If you like McNamara, you say, come on, what are we talking about? One throw. You don't like McNamara, you say, look, that's an issue. I don't see an issue with that. McNamara is he entrenched? Well, he was the starter last year, and they won, and he hasn't had the competition from J.J. McCarthy because McCarthy was not able to throw in the spring and compete. So this is McNamara's job. Now, does that mean J.J. McCarthy can't win it in fall? Does that mean that McCarthy, can't get some time once the season starts because they've got the schedule that you would think, looking at it, that they would be both of those guys some time and that they could compete through the first couple games? I think all those things are true. But, I like to react, not over or underreact. Just call it what it was. McNamara threw a dud. First series to Gojo. That's what it was. But here's my money. And I'll take some bets on it. I would put my money down on Cade McNamara taking the first snap against the Rams on September the 3rd. You want some of that action? Get at me. All right. It's one of those things that, we know the quarterback position, and we know that they rotated McCarthy in a little bit last year, but it was like if we just had to argue about Blake Corum, if Blake Corum was getting, 100% of the, and we know that they won't do it that way, but if you had to say, who is the best running back? Is it going to be Corum? Well, you can make a case for Donovan Warren after what you saw against Ohio State, after, Maryland. He had that nice one-handed catch against Ohio State. He threw the touchdown pass against Iowa. And, he just looks like the best is to come. He looks like he could be a superstar. I mean, all those things. But, he's going to get his chance. McCarthy get a little bit of a chance, but, you can only play one quarterback. Just like wide receiver, if you had to name who was the go-to wide receiver for Michigan, you've got a lot of guys to pick from. I'd be tempted to say Ronnie Bell. But we don't know what he's going to be like, although he looked pretty good running down after the Darrius Clemons touchdown on TV. Before his injury, it would have been Ronnie Bell. Now, I would say Cornelius Johnson, but if you wanted to argue Andrell Anthony, you could. To make a case for Roman Wilson, we've been talking about A.J. Henning. Oh, yeah. What about Clemons? I'd make my case for Cornelius Johnson as the X on this team. Mention those quarterbacks a little bit, but Davis Warren, a story of a guy who hadn't played in a game. We call this a spring game. What did he play? Limited time as he was diagnosed with leukemia as a junior in high school, then did not play as a senior, was on the scout team last year. So This is quite a story here of a guy being able to get out there Saturday and, look pretty good, showing that arm that he had. He's got an arm. I can tell you that much. And then Alex Orji came in. Watching the NFL this past year when Lamar Jackson got hurt, the quarterback out of, Utah, Tyler Huntley, played a few games, looked pretty good. Looked really good for the Ravens. Orji, I'm just sitting back there watching him. And, he makes a run, then he makes a really nice run, and then he throws the ball. That's who came to mind to me. Built like Tyler Huntley and throws the ball. You can see it really spins it, got a really strong arm. Yeah, going to have to work on his accuracy for sure, but that's who came to mind to me watching Orji. Now, the halftime entertainment, whether you like Colin Kaepernick, whether you don't like Colin Kaepernick, what you had there is publicity. Kind of like arguing. The late Drew Sharp used to argue with me that there was no such thing as bad publicity. I'd say, you know what, I can think of a lot of situations where, you could come up with some bad publicity, Drew. And he's like, no. Well, the one thing that I don't think you can argue about it was publicity. And you want to call it a stunt, you want to call it good publicity, you want to call it bad, whatever you want to call it, it was some publicity. And when you have, the Big Ten Network saying, we'll stay here and provide you play-by-play of the halftime entertainment, that's some publicity. And so, and not only, this occurred to me, and maybe this point was made, I didn't hear anybody make it, about Kaepernick. Did it draw the attention of some scouts, like the Lions scout, had some people there to, in person to watch Kaepernick. Maybe there were some other NFL teams. So, did those guys just show up and watch Kaepernick throw at halftime? Or if you're an NFL guy, you say, let me get down there early enough and let's just watch the whole spring game. There's, got to be a half dozen, maybe a dozen, maybe more. A potential down the road, probably more NFL prospects. That's publicity. I think, I don't know, what ultimately were Harbaugh's intentions. Maybe it was just like, hey, I'm help out my former quarterback and, he's trying to get back in the league. So why not? But getting scouts down there that otherwise would not have been there to watch your players and see him in person. If you've listened to one scout, you've heard 100. Like, yeah, I went down to see this, and this so and so caught my eye. Good publicity for the rest of those Michigan guys. Something that I was thinking about. A couple quick things here. Here's the money picture of the day. That is off the Michigan Twitter football page of Darrius Clemons hauling in that, what was it, a 35-yard touchdown grab. It was sweet. That was the highlight of the day. And you see Zero extending out. I was going to say he caught like the back half of the football. You look in there. He's got his hands over 75% of it. Maybe it slipped through there. Then he was able to get that lower half of the ball. Anyway, it went. It was a sweet catch there for Clemons. I was an NFL scout watching Colin Kaepernick, and I was sitting back. Would I grab my roster and look down it and say, hey, who's this Zero? Yes, I would. One other one I want to look at. This is a photo that I'm putting up of the quarterbacks that Michigan has at their disposal during the spring. And there's a heck of a lot of them. You've got a picture of Cade McNamara. We've talked about Davis Warren a bunch. Alex Orji. This is actually from Alex Orji's Twitter feed, or maybe it was his dad's Twitter feed. J.J. McCarthy in the picture. Jaden Denegal, the other true freshman QB. He looks like a QB. 16, might be the tallest of all the guys. A couple guys in there. I'm not going to name them all. I'm not sure I know all of their names, but McCarthy in there. And there's Cade wearing the stocking cap because he mostly was on the sideline as a coach. But pretty cool picture there of all of the Michigan QBs, and it was one of the things that stood out during the spring game that Michigan, you take top 2 signal callers off of almost every team in the country, and you get out there and try to put some semblance of a game together, and you're going to have guys misfiring, and you're just not going to be able to see a downfield passing game, or not going to be able to run many passing plays because there's just not guys with the ability with Division I arms. And yet Michigan had Davis Warren out there firing the ball. It was like, hey, this guy definitely can fire it. And Alan Bowman too. I mean, Alan Bowman played a hell of a lot of games at Texas Tech, started a lot of games. So you got a starting quarterback in Bowman, and Davis Warren. You got Orgy coming in, and so there was a pretty good mix there of things that were going on. Antoine, talking about all those guys are quarterbacks. They had to be, majority of them as walk-ons. No, Antoine, you're right. I'll go back to the picture just really quick that you're talking about. In the front row, Orgy's on scholarship. In the back row from the right, I mentioned Jason Denegal. He's wearing number 16. Looks like he's the tallest of all the QBs. He's on scholarship. Next to Denegal is McCarthy. You know that he is. And the other, so you got 4 scholarship QBs there with Cade, McNamara, J.J. McCarthy, Jason Denegal, and Orgy. Yeah, the rest of them, those are guys that have walked down. You're right, Antoine, about that. But the point is, with Warren here, here's somebody. Oh, yeah, I'll take that back. Bowman as well. He will be on scholarship. Which one's Bowman? Alan Bowman, I think, wears 15. Oh, he's right there in the front, right in the middle. He's got a headband on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scholarship players. But the way Davis Warren threw the ball, if I was a college football team that was watching my team in the spring and thought, I just can't get the ball down the field with the QBs that have, would I call Davis Warren after seeing the Michigan tape? The answer is that I would do that.
Michigan as a university, it stands alone right there, and it stood above like the rest of the options that I had when I entered the transfer portal. And obviously the brand of football. The O-line's coming off a Joe Moore award. The team's coming off of making the college football playoffs, and I just love the momentum of the program, and I felt like I could add to it. So it was a no-brainer.
He just brings a lot of experience, He learned his stuff in the season before even spring ball starts, so he already knows all the calls. He fits right in. He's going to elevate this O-line to, I think we can even be even better than last year, I think, with him.
There he is, Alex, or that was Ryan Hayes there at the end, and there was Olusegun Oluwatimi talking about Michigan there. And you hear this guy? Hey, why did a guy who finished as one of the top 3 centers last year pick Michigan? Virginia's pretty good academically, so those transfers were able to credit and are able to transfer. And what did Olu say about Michigan?
Michigan as a university, it stands alone right there, and it stood above like the rest of the options that I had when I entered the transfer portal. And obviously the brand of football. The O-line's coming off a Joe Moore award. The team's coming off of making the college football playoffs, and I just love the momentum of the program, and I felt like I could add to it.
Yeah, momentum of the program. Coming off the Joe Moore, winning the offensive as a group, as a unit, best offensive line in the country, and Michigan needing to replace Andrew Vastardis there. It was a perfect fit. And there he is, Oluwatimi, who you can see right there. You knew it last year, and you knew that this was going to be you're only as good as your offensive line, but you're bringing one of this is as good as possibly could be with all of the teeth gnashing, I was going to say, criticism of Michigan not being able to get guys in the transfer portal because of transfer credits. Here's a guy who, I sound like Chris Collinsworth, here's a guy who could go down this year as the top transfer in all of college football, with Michigan playing one of the most important positions, a position of need. And now you look at it, you ask me, the strength of their team as the offensive line. All right. The spring game was Saturday. We're just scratching the surface. I could probably go another hour sitting around talking about different players and the guys that stood out. And I'll be back tomorrow and talk more about it. Antoine saying he wished Michigan was clever enough to use some of the wingback option. We have the personnel to do it with Orji. Antoine, I got the feeling that, I don't know about, Michigan being clever enough. You're saying that because they ran 2 reverses where they had the tight end throwing the ball and they had a wide receiver throwing the ball. If you go back to the Big Ten championship game, they had Donovan Edwards throwing a touchdown pass to Roman Wilson. That was the biggest play of the game. Last year, the talk was with Michigan in some short yardage situations that they were going to potentially bring in a freshman who was pretty good, and they mentioned him being like a situation with the Saints and what they were doing and some of their short yardage. So is there a chance that you're going to have a package in some short yardage situations where Alex Orji would come in and run the football for Michigan? Yes. Now, remember, J.J. McCarthy is pretty good as well running the ball. So I think you're looking for wrinkles. You're looking for, those. I think Michigan, I don't know how much more you want, Antoine. Like back in my day, or I don't know, my day, like 20 years ago, was it a criticism that Lloyd Carr could have opened things up a little bit more and utilized his talent better? I think, I think there's a point to that. Lloyd would always say, I like throwing the football. But I think what Michigan brings now, what they showed last year, that, they're willing. Now you say Harbaugh just likes running the football. And, I think that Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, and Maryland, I think Jim Harbaugh going in is like, you want it to be like last year where, they win their games, they get a chance to play Ohio State to go to the college football playoff. I think, the approach of let's just run it down their throat until they stop us, and then we'll just, work on the passing game when necessary or go to the passing game when necessary. I think that's going to be the formula this year for them. Now, you have so many pass catchers at wide receiver, at tight end, Donovan Edwards coming out of the backfield. Hell, like you're talking about the running ability of McCarthy and Orji. Who knows how all that mixes in, but I'm not concerned about them holding things back. Antoine saying that JJ's too valuable to have him running. You have to be tough and rough to take hits. Yeah, I think he is valuable. There's no doubt about that. What do you say? What do you say about Josh Allen, for the Bills running on a 4th and 1? Oh, he's a big guy. What about Lamar Jackson? These are the guys in the NFL. So, I don't know, McCarthy. You got to use. Now, do I want J.J. McCarthy in a I don't know, 38-3 game against Hawaii in game 2 and on a 4th and 1 to think about lowering his shoulder against the Rainbows? No, I think you want to be smart about it. Don't want him to step out of bounds after a 5-yard gain against UConn in the 3rd game, rather than, lower his shoulder to try to get 6-7 yards. Yeah, I think you need to be smart there. But you get into a situation where you're at Iowa at night and, McCarthy's in there or maybe starting, maybe whatever his role is going to be. You gotta let him. Yeah, he's got to be smart. You don't want to take any unnecessary hits, but you also want him to utilize his talent there. Antoine, we'll talk about that all year long. We've got 5 months of Michigan football to think about how to use these guys, what positions to put them in, move them around here. And we saw a little bit of that on Saturday, mostly with the backups. But we'll have more to get to tomorrow. Same time here at 1 o'clock. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Enjoy the last night of college basketball. I'm taking UConn tonight over the Tar Heels. I'm laying the 4 points. I'll talk with you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Until then, everybody have a great rest of your Monday.